Welcome to Diversified Lifelong Advisors, where our mission is to have you living a life filled of wealth, health, and happiness. My name is Andrew Rosen, President of Diversified Lifelong Advisors. Today we have a very special guest, the lovely Mrs. Nicolette Richer, which is a perfect name for a health, wealth, and happiness interview series. So thank you, Nicolette. She is a health educator, author, speaker, entrepreneur, and master manifester, and probably like a 12-degree black belt if I had to guess on top of it. And her goal is helping people reach their body's optimal potential. Thanks for joining me today, Nicolette.
Yeah, thanks. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
I appreciate it. So hit us with it. Tell me about yourself.
Yeah, I am just like every other person who, was working. I had a job that I didn't really like, and I decided to go off and start my first business. And so now I am a mother of three, and I run 5 different businesses. And and we're just out there to do good in the world through the work that we do and helping people get access to clean, real food, and helping people understand that food is medicine, and serving up the best, healthiest, cleanest food we can through our restaurants. And, that's just one of the businesses that we do. But I'm a pretty busy mama.
It sounds it. I feel ill accomplished only having one company today. So you're an idol to us, inspiration to us all. So what got you inspired to get and motivated to get into the health and wellness field, if you will?
Yeah, and I feel like I'd always been in the health and wellness field because I was on the government side, working for all levels of government, doing policy work for different environmental initiatives, such as, water protection and conservation, doing policy work for getting communities to use less pesticides. And so I was more on the environmental health side. So I knew the research in that field. And then what happened is one of my friend's dads, he was 72 at the time. He was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, and he was given 3 months to live. Now, Bill was his name. He was a very wealthy man. He used to travel around North America and Australia as a public speaker, speaking to the real estate community and teaching realtors how to make more wealth and health and happiness. And that's really what Bill did. So it was a real blow when he was diagnosed with cancer that wasn't treatable. So he ended up, being the renegade that he was, he turned to nutrition and a plant-based whole food diet therapy that he did. And he ended up living 22 more years. So being a researcher who saw a 72-year-old use food to reverse his cancer, I became very interested in that, of course. So that was about 4 years ago. And so I started researching the connection between our diet and our chronic diseases that we're plagued with across our nation. Like it's terrible what's happened in the last 20 years with the rates of chronic disease going up. So what I found is that actually we have over 150 years of evidence-based, peer-reviewed medical journals publishing that food is medicine, that we need nutrients, lo and behold. And so that's when I took the leap, and I actually ended up leaving my comfy, cozy, golden handcuff job in government and went off and started my first business to be able to support people in learning this information.
That's awesome. And what a great message. So how are you hoping that your message can actually change the world, change people's lives? I mean, it sounds like that's what you're trying to do. So what are you hoping that outcome is for people?
Yeah. So one of the biggest parts about just being a human being is you're born with so much potential. You are born with this incredible DNA that knows how to keep your body healthy. But as we go through life and we're born into the world and we start getting exposed to, all of the vices that are out there that we're all privy to, the alcohol, the refined processed food, really high meat and dairy consumption. These are the things that really sabotage our DNA and sabotage our beings. So what I have found is that in teaching thousands of people from all around the world how to successfully reverse their chronic diseases, their heart disease, autoimmune disorders, diabetes, their mental health conditions, is when they actually return to food as medicine, they actually it's like the fog lifts from not only their brain, but their entire life. And they're able to, again, realize their innate human potential. And that's when my clients go off and, they leave their jobs, start a business, they go out there and they go back to school, they get a degree or their master's or their PhD, they become athletes, they move communities to the communities that they love living in. And it's really when they start living their best life, when they're liberated from the pain of the chronic disease, the fatigue of the chronic disease. So by doing the work that I do, it's actually to watch humans become the best versions of themselves. And the other thing that I realized with my clients is that they often actually become very philanthropic and generous, and they want to go out there and serve their community in better ways as well, which they weren't able to do when they were basically like under this heavy blanket of their chronic illness. And so by doing the work I do, it's really just liberating society from this epidemic of chronic disease. And by doing that as well, they also end up caring for the land. So they want to grow cleaner food with less pesticides. They want to support farmers and CSA programs. They want to just make better choices all around in their households as well.
It makes sense. Now, I hope you're not taking away my red wine because this will really destroy me if I start taking your advice and I can't have my red wine. So Nicolette, help me. There's probably a lot of preconceived notions or misconceptions about food. Give us, and of course we're talking to a decent sized audience in here, and not everyone's going to do everything, and we don't nearly have enough time to get into full blown discussion about every last thing on food or as medicine. But what are a few preconceived notions or a few things that we can take away from it, or shifts in our life from a relationship with food that you would want to give us a couple nuggets?
Sure. So that's a great question. And it's actually the title of my book, which has been a #1 bestseller for the last few years. And it's called Eat Real to Heal. And so a lot of people ask me, like, what does that mean? Eat real? What is real food? And the easiest way to understand what real food is, it's going back and, depending on how old you are, trying to remember what your grandparents or your great grandparents ate, what was on their plates, because that was most likely real food. If you've been born, from the 1940s and 50s onwards, you've probably been exposed to more fake pretend foods than anything else. So this is the convenience foods, the packaged processed food. So I work with a lot of clients that will fly into our nutrition and detox wellness center, and I'll hold up a potato and they don't know what a potato is. I'll hold up a cabbage. They don't know what a cabbage is because they've never seen these foods in their whole, complete, real forms. And so So this is what people need to understand, is that if you go to the grocery store and you pick up anything that has a label on it, so if it's in a box, if it's in a package, chances are it's not real food. It's been processed and ultra processed, and then it's been heavily marketed to you to convince you that it's healthy. So if you're listening to this, I'm putting up my quotation signs around the word healthy. So they'll often label the box with being organic or whole wheat or a whole food Cheerios and infused with turmeric or anything like that. If it needs words written on it to be marketed to you, that is not real food. So real food would be going to the produce section, buying lots of fruits and vegetables, getting a recipe book if you don't know how to use those fruits and vegetables, cleaning them, chopping them up, putting them into an amazing dish, cooking them for a long time. Maybe you want to eat them raw as well. It doesn't matter if it's cooked or raw. And that is really what real food is. By getting people back onto real food, it's amazing how fast they can reverse their diseases. My clients reverse their diabetes entirely off all their medications in less than 30 days. They get off all their heart disease meds in less than 3 months. And this is by their doctor's order. The same doctors that put them on the meds are now taking them off the meds because their body has no need for it when the body has all the nutrients it needs to self-heal.
That's wild. So, okay. So I love a good success story. Tell me, Nicolette, if you don't mind, one or two that resonate. I mean,
Sure.
you started with telling about sort of your mentor here who got you really motivated. But since you've been coaching and healing people and giving this advice, give me one or two stories that stick out of how this shift really happens and how magical it can be.
Okay, so I'm going to tell you a story of a female client and a male client.
All right, cool.
And you have to understand that what I teach is non-specific. So what it means is that when we get you onto clean, real food, whether you have stage 4 cancer, diabetes, heart disease, infertility, an autoimmune disorder, MS, it does not matter. It's the same concept of getting loads and loads of nutrients into you in their cleanest, real form, because then your cells can utilize those nutrients to heal your body. Okay. So that's the most important. So one of my clients was a 29-year-old woman, and she had 18 fibroids the size of grapefruits inside of her uterus. And the doctor said to her, well, we're just going to take out your uterus. And she said, well, I haven't had kids yet. Like, isn't there anything else we can do? And they said, well, surgery is not even an option. Like, your uterus is pretty much destroyed from these 18 fibroids. Now, she came to me. She actually was the first day we had opened our first restaurant. We now have 5 that serve all the foods that I teach on my therapy. And she came in crying, sitting at the counter, holding my card. So of course I had to go up to her and say, how can I help you? So I taught her the therapy. And she went on and did it for the next 3 months. She kept her surgery date to have the hysterectomy. But what happened over the next 3 months is her belly that looked like she was 9 months pregnant from all of these fibroids, her belly just started to shrink and shrink and shrink. The ultrasound showed that the fibroids were shrinking. By the time her surgery date arrived, all she had left were 6 tiny grape-sized fibroids. And they were able to go in with laser surgery, remove them. And she was in our restaurant the next day, drinking one of our amazing, healthy, vibrant vegetable juices, eating one of our meals. And that's one example. So she still has her uterus today, and she can go ahead, and the doctors have given her the clear to have kids. And that was 7 years ago. No return of her disease. So on the male side,
That's wild.
it is wild. And
That's
the
wild.
body is self-healing. You don't have to live with these diseases at all. So on the male side, I had a client who was 65 years old, and he was told that he was told he had heart disease. So he had been on medications for a very long time, several years. And he was told it was genetic by his doctor because his brothers were on the same medications for the same heart illnesses that he had. And his dad was on the same medications from the same diseases that he had. So the doctor said, this is just your, this is what you've been given in life. Sorry, buddy. So Patrick was a very successful businessman, but suffering from this heart disease. And he came and listened to one of my talks one day. So he called me up and he said, do you think you could help me? So I said, well, let's give it a shot. I know it can heal the body. I've worked with lots of people with heart disease before who aren't on their medications, but we truly didn't know if it was genetic because the doctors just said that even though they had never done a genetic test.
Sure.
So he did the therapy, and sure enough, he was off his medications entirely. And we had an event where he came and spoke at our event, and his doctor showed up to actually stand up, and she hijacked our talk, one of the talks. And she says, I just have to say that you forever changed my life. I will never tell a patient again that they have a genetic disease if we haven't tested it, because you've proven that food is medicine and food can reverse disease. So no more heart disease. He's now 70 years old, and he is an avid road cycler, can run. He's amazing. He's athletic, and he's super healthy with no medications.
That's wild. And I believe food is medicine. That's why I always stuff it in my face. Is there any other reason? That's why. That's powerful stuff, isn't it? Isn't it great? I mean, I love just in our world when we're able to change someone's life and they turn around after you're done with them and working with them, and they just are so thankful that where they came from and where they are now is 2 different people.
Totally.
That's awesome. So 22 million movement, right? That's a lot. Tell all the listeners and people watching this what the 22 million movement is.
Yeah. So our 22 million strong campaign is our latest campaign that we are rolling out. And it's one of the biggest ones that we've ever done. And it really came about for many reasons. Number one, for the last 16 years, I have been running my businesses and really focused on helping my clients, which I often do from my chair and my desk. And so I became not unhealthy, but on a movement side, on an exercise side, you could say I became very sedentary. So I was eating well, and thank goodness that's what kept me free of disease. But from the movement side, I had not been moving. So I decided I need to move my body. But of course, I'm so busy running my businesses, I wasn't sure how I was going to do that. Plus, I'm doing my PhD. And so with my PhD research, I called my university and I said, hey, you know how busy I am. Is there a way that I can meld together my PhD research? I can move my body and I can do this good work that I do in teaching people how to use food as medicine to heal. So my university said, well, if you want to get moving, why don't you actually do some research where you move your body a long distance and then also meet with Indigenous communities, physicians groups and youth groups, and really learn about what are the barriers to accessing clean, real food. So this is what became the 22 million movement, which is where I'm going to be running and cycling across Canada from the west coast of North America to the east coast of North America. And I'll be running and cycling 100 kilometers a day, stopping and meeting with Indigenous communities, physicians groups, and youth groups, and having discussions around dinners. Actually, we're going to have circle gatherings around dinners where we serve clean, real, whole food so people can experience that. And then we get to learn from them what is really important in their community to allow them to be able to access clean, real food. So I'll be doing that leaving June 1st next year.
Wow. Well, again, I feel bad about myself. I think I ran 2 miles today. That was my big accomplishment, and that's a good day.
I couldn't run 100 meters 14 weeks ago. Actually, I literally felt like my lungs were going to fall out and my legs were going to break off. And now I'm running and training anywhere from 1.5 to 5 hours a day, and I'm pretty much set to go now to be able to leave to go across Canada.
That's wild. And for those that don't know, Nicolette lives in British Columbia, which is why she's choosing Canada, not the United States, and why she says about, not about. The way, so just to clarify for those that don't know. So,
exactly.
So one of our passions, as I was talking with you before we started, is about promoting wealth, health, and happiness. And 2 of those are on your website and front and center, which is health and happiness, and heck, the third is your last name, is part of your last name. How do you hope your work can generate health and happiness in individuals, or inspire?
Health and happiness or wealth?
Yeah, no, forget wealth. I'll handle that stuff. You can talk about the other 2, which sounds like your bailiwick.
Yeah, when, and like I said earlier, when people are suffering from a chronic disease and why don't I just give you another example? There was a woman in a neighboring community who she was about to take her life. She was severely depressed. She had several illnesses. She was on lots of medications. And she just didn't know what to do. The doctors weren't able to help her. The medications weren't helping. She had 3 children, like you and I both have, Andrew. And not together, but you have 3 kids. I have 3 kids. So
be a good-looking child if we did, but we do have our own.
Our own sets of 3.
That's it.
Yeah. So Sarah had 3 kids, and she, and on this particular day, she had decided that was it. She was going to take her life. She opened up the newspaper and she saw that we had just opened up a restaurant close to her home. So she actually, for some reason, got dressed, went down to our restaurant, and she went and ordered a meal. And she was eating it. And she looked on the counter, and we sell a lot of books and a lot of reading materials in our restaurants to help our clients and our customers learn more about food as medicine. So she grabbed a book. It was called Eat to Live by Joel Fuhrman, an amazing book. And she bought that book and she took it home and she read it. And so she never even contacted us. All she did was implement the exact dietary changes that are mentioned in the book. And she was also 150 pounds overweight. So she ended up doing everything in that book. She lost 150 pounds. She was off all her medications. And then a year later, she wrote to us and she said, I just have to tell you that your restaurant forever changed my life. Now, it wasn't us that did it. I can guarantee it. She's the one who took the action to do that. But this is how it creates health and happiness. Number one, she was able to go back to being a parent again, which she wasn't able to do. She no longer was living on her couch. She actually went and started her own business. So then that's the wealth part that comes in there. But you can imagine the amount of happiness that comes from that. So not just in her life, but her children's life, her partner's life, her community's life, because now they have a citizen who's active and contributing and is a member of society once again that wasn't present before. So you can imagine how this changes you. But the other way, like even if you are someone who is relatively healthy and doesn't even have a chronic disease, what we find is when people eat clean, real food in abundance and diversity, their energy levels go through the roof. And I can tell you, when your energy levels go through the roof, you are happy because number one, you don't, you're no longer saying things like, honey, I'm too tired tonight to have sex. Or you're no longer saying, kids, go play outside because I'm too tired to deal with you. You're actually engaged in your life. So it does bring about so much happiness in addition to the health as well.
No, it's logical, right? It certainly makes sense. It's just not easy without prioritizing. So what makes you happy, Nicolette? I always ask this question since it's the end game for us all. I'd like to know what brings joy and happiness in your life.
Oh my goodness, there's so many things. So I would say, and my kids would laugh at this and my husband too, a really good book. So I have not read a fiction book in so long. So anytime, but I do a lot of research. So my kids know that I love my books almost as much as I love them. So, but other things that make me happy is just when a client actually says enough is enough, and they actually take the steps to learn how to eat better, learn how to prepare healthy meals, and they start doing that for themselves and their family. And when I get a phone call from a parent that's like, you should see what I packed my kids today for school, and they ate it all and they loved it, and they send me a picture of their kids' lunch, and it's just outstanding. It's full of all of these vibrant colors, no packaged processed food in there. It's all, real whole foods. There's probably nothing that makes me happier when a client gets off their medications and a doctor actually sends me their medical reports, because I work with their medical teams, and they say this patient no longer has the need for their drugs. I mean, that's probably one of the most exciting things ever. And I ultimately love traveling, which we can't do right now in the midst of COVID, because I often do a lot of traveling to speak at events and to coach big corporations actually to get their entire teams to, we handhold their teams for an entire year to be able to reverse their diseases, and their HR departments are so happy and their insurance companies are so happy. So that makes me happy, is being able to teach other people.
That's awesome. So it sounds like you're living your dream here, which is awesome to see, right? Following your passion.
100%.
All right. So my last question for everyone is always, you gave a lot of good tips. You gave some great insights, some really inspiring stories. There's one thing you want people to take away from or implement from today's chat, today's interview, what would that one thing be?
Yeah. So the one thing is that it might seem like what I'm saying is too simple. You're like, how can this possibly be true that, food is medicine and that you can reverse these chronic diseases by changing your diet and eating clean, real food? So I want everyone to take away this, is that it is that simple, actually. But what's hard is actually making the decision to learn something new, to change your existing habits, and to prioritize. You use that word prioritize, and that's exactly what you have to do. You have to prioritize your health. And I think a lot of us have gotten so complacent with thinking that the physician knows best, and that when a physician says you have a disease, you have to live with it for the rest of your life. But that's not the case, because we've proven that out over and over again. And there's physicians out there who teach exactly what I teach. You've proven that out over and over again. So it is that simple. You just need to prioritize, and you just need to be willing to learn something new and be able to practice that and go out there and do it. So once you do that, it's amazing how your life can be so fundamentally different. So don't sit back, accept your diagnosis as it is, or accept your health or lack of energy or whatever it is that is not ideal in your life. You can always make it better. You can make your financial health better, you can make your happiness better, and you can make your health better.
That's awesome. Again, people steal my big ending, but that's great. That's great, Nicolette. So if I'm sure everyone listening is as inspired as I am talking to you, and would love to learn more about this underachiever, Nicolette Richer, and how she can help get her message out and help potentially help others. So can you tell everyone where they can learn more about you? I know you have a lot of different things going on, but what's the
Yeah.
couple best places for them to connect with you and learn more?
Sure. Well, right now, I'd love to drive everybody to 22millionstrong.ca. And that's where you can learn all about our company's Richer Health and our 22 Million Strong campaign. If you want to donate and get behind this, then that would be incredible, because you'd be actually contributing to science, as I'm going to be one of the first women to cross Canada on a plant-based whole food diet. So there's several universities that are going to be publishing many studies on me as well, to show that a plant-based whole food nutrient dense diet can fuel you in endurance sports and very high stress situations. You can also go to nicolettericher.com. So my last name is actually Richer, but it's phonetically spelled Richer. So nicolettericher.com, and you can learn all about our restaurant, our franchise company, all about the consulting work that I do. We have online courses, books, we have everything.
That's awesome. Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much for joining us, Nicolette. And for those that are listening at home, again, go to 22millionstrong.ca. And if you enjoyed it as much as I did, please share this with others and help get Nicolette's message out. As always, stay wealthy, stay healthy, stay happy. I'm Andrew Rosen. Take care. Thanks again, Nicolette.
Thanks, Andrew.